look up the North Carolina meaderies, is a muscadine mead. Nobody seems to have done one yet. So, and it's really, because they're awesome grapes, lots of flavor, and the skins are like 5 times thicker than grapey grapes.
Yep.
You have to like take and stick the grape in your mouth and then crunch down on it to squirt the innards out and then spit out the cover, because it's like a, it's like a, it's almost not like a shell, but it's like a thick skin, like almost as thick as an orange's skin.
And they've got an interesting, I guess I'll use the word musk to them.
They do. That's why they call them muscadines.
Yeah, and it almost flips over to acquired taste. Like, I could see how people could be like, ooh, this is kind of weird.
Well, the wines that flavor does not carry over into the wines, not in a way that's in a negative. I've had their reds, their whites, and the difference between the two basically being how long they sit on the skin. And they're all good and don't have that. They have an earthy note, yes, which is good. I mean, it adds to the wine, but you don't get that musky thing. Doesn't happen once it gets fermented.
Yeah, I think I recall, it was Lake Ridge Winery in Florida. I recall them having a wide range of grapes. Most of I had never heard of, like Stover and Harvest and things. I mean, and they were all very different. I mean, I would have liked to try the grapes themselves before I had the wines, just so I could kind of place what I think would be in there. But I found all of them to be enjoyable in the sense that they were different than wines that you would get in some other place, which is kind of the fun of it. You go to a winery because you want to check out what do you guys do differently than somebody else. But I know there are people out there like, oh my God, I hate those. I hate Scuppernuggs and muscadines, and oh my God, they're gross.
I love Scuppernuggs.
Yeah, that's what grows there, right? You know what I mean? We don't really, we have grapes in New Hampshire, but we grow more fruit.
Yeah.
You know, berries and apples and stuff like that than we grow grapes in most cases because it grows really well.
Yeah, we've actually become quite the grape producing place. We're 12th in the country now, so yeah.
Wow.
Are muscadines also referred to as a muscatel?
Do you know?
Well,
muscatel is a type of wine. I think that is a different grape. I think they may be related. I don't know. I've never had a muscatel grape, but muscadines and scuppernongs are what you find in North Carolina, and I think South Carolina are like pretty much the grape. Although in the West, you get into the mountains and they've got traditional traditional wine grapes. So you're going to see, whatever, Sauvignon, thing like that. But, that is our grape, if you will.
I think my grandfather actually used to use, because he would pronounce it, with a Portuguese accent, it's moscatel. And the first part of the word actually means fly. And he would always joke around how, the flies would always go to those grapes before any others. But I think he actually even grew some up here in New Jersey, especially in New Jersey. I grew up. Every house I grew up in had grapevines in the backyard, and if you see grapevines in the backyard in New Jersey, I guarantee you there's a Portuguese family living in that house, because that's the first thing you do when you buy a house if you're Portuguese up here. You plant some grapevines, I actually used to use those if muscatel is the same as muscadine. That's the only thing that kind of rings a bell. But yeah, he actually used to mix that in with some of his wines with other grapes that you get, and it's pretty interesting. I was too young to really drink or remember anything that I might have drank, but he did always used to serve me a sweet wine. He would call it basically a few days later he would give me the wine, still fermenting. That's the wine that he would let me drink as a kid, basically.
Totally grape juice.
Sergio, did you guys actually use the grape leaves as well? Did anybody use those in cuisine? Because I know there's some cuisines where they wrap stuff in grape leaves and steam it.
Oh, gosh,
and I know that's another reason why people grow grapes, not necessarily for the grapes themselves, but you basically get this leaf paper that you can.
The guys who plant the grapes who aren't Portuguese, those are the Greek guys that are wrapping things in grape leaves.
Yes.
Yeah. I was about to say, Greek cuisine. Yeah, Greek. Yeah, Greek.
I adore grape leaves.
Uses grape leaves.
Yeah.
No, the Portuguese just pick them and prune them. Actually, my grandparents, we actually had to schedule our wedding date my wife and I, because my grandfather said that he wouldn't be back from Portugal in time to make the date that we wanted to get married in, because he had to prune all his grapevines before leaving over there.
Well, yeah, you can't just let them go. I mean, gosh knows what'll happen.
Yeah. But no grapevines in Portuguese cuisine or grape leaves.
So as I was thinking about Pyments, and I was thinking more so for folks that are thinking about doing this at home, I actually came up with 5 different types of ingredients that I've used for Pyments. So we talked about grapes, and certainly anybody who can get grapes, if you can get whole grapes and you can crush them and process them, press them yourself, definitely going to get some high quality, very fresh grape juice out of it. But if you're not necessarily up for that, I've also made Pyments from juice. So getting full buckets of fresh juice, either West Coast, Chilean juice. I've gotten Chilean Cabernet juice in the springtime through M&M Wine Grape down in Connecticut. So again, that makes for a great product because you're only a couple of weeks from grapes hanging on the vineyard in South America to a bucket of juice sitting in your house ready to ferment. I've also made Pyments from wine kits. So if you buy a wine kit, you get a big bag of concentrate. So I've actually kind of reverse engineered the concentrate and figured out, okay, what volume do I want to make? Here's what I've got this for the concentrate, take out the hydrometer or the refractometer and measure what's the bricks of the juice so I can figure out how much sugar it's got in it, and then, add the honey I want and top up with water to a particular volume. And then I also mentioned earlier the winemaking concentrate. So you've got, these canisters of concentrate, and same thing, they have a certain bricks content, and usually they'll tell you that because they want you to understand exactly how concentrated it is. Same thing, you can build up the recipe the way you want. And then the other variety that I had mentioned was you add all that stuff together, but then you decide you want to add fruit as well. We did a white Pymen a few years back with gooseberries in it.
Ooh.
I mean, again, it was more Sauvignon Blanc like than I ever thought, because Sauvignon Blanc, one of the the sensory receptors is gooseberries, and it came through. It took a year or so for it to kind of chill out a little bit. It was a little too green peppery for me. It's pyrazines, and that gooseberry can have a lot of that, which is where Sauvignon Blanc can as well. So those are kind of 5 different styles, 5 different types of ingredients, and it kind of feels to me like that covers everybody who would want to try it, because we all technically have access to all of those ingredients. Just depends on what time of year and where you are.
Yeah. Your grape varietals might change a little, but the big ones, though, I mean, I can get stuff you can't get around here in, off the vine, if you will. But I can lay my hands on Merlot juice. I can lay my hands on that. Which brings up the question of, let's say, people are wanting to make a Pyment. Maybe they can't lay their hands on the actual grapes. Maybe all they can get is the juice that comes in the wine kits. So what are your thoughts about Pyments without skins, and where would you use them? Where could you not live without them? I probably is maybe a better question.
Red Pyments are definitely going to benefit from skins more than white ones will, I think.
Yep.
And it's you've got the tannic component there that would be far more prevalent in a red wine. Therefore, a red Pyment you'd assume that if you were looking for balance and making it more wine-like, you'd want more tannins, and without the skins, you're certainly not going to have as many. That can be supplemented.
But you could always supplement. Yeah,
with powdered tannin, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, skin contact for white Pyments, depending on the grape, Pinot Gris, some of those made on the West Coast in Oregon, they do have skin contact, so they end up being pinkish, and that helps because you get tannins, you get other acid and flavor components from it. But I wouldn't tell anybody not to do it. I'd only caution that in white grapes, sometimes you end up getting things out of white grape skins that you are not familiar with because they're typically not in white wines made from those same grapes. So you might not necessarily like it. It would be, I guess I'd caution, do it on a small pilot batch of first time and give it a go and be like, oh, okay, I like that. Or no, I don't. I won't do it again because it's because those skins have tannins in them as well. Not as many. They don't have as many of the color compounds, as the red grape does. But it's certainly going to change the outcome to let it sit there, on skins. I don't let my Concords, when I make Pyments out of them, sit on the skins that long, which is why they kind of – I'm holding the bottle up in front of the monitor. It's actually a year and a half later, kind of a light brownish color. You know,
Okay.
I don't know if that's just, there might have been an oxidation while I was, doing the pressing and stuff, and certainly sitting in the bottle that long. But it's pinkish when I start with it, and that's because I don't want all the stuff that's in Concord grapes in the skins, in that, because it just makes it too funky for me.
Yeah, I've heard that with Concords. I don't do a lot with them for obvious reasons, but I've read that on a number of occasions.
As far as using fresh grapes, though, if you're going to make a pyment from them, if you're going to make a red grape pyment, with fresh grapes, you definitely do. Obviously, you're going to want to let the skin sit in there for a little while to get those tannins, but also the color. I mean, if you don't put the skins in there, you have to remember all grapes are the same color on the inside. The only thing that makes a red wine red are the skins. Mm-hmm. So that's going to play a big part there. I mean, you could make. There's such a thing as like a white Cabernet. You know what I mean? They just don't leave it on the skins. Or on the other side of the spectrum with white wine, there's actually. There's a method. I don't know if there's just specific grape varietals that it works better with or not, but have you guys ever heard of like orange wine? Mm-hmm. Where it's basically it's a white wine aged on the skins as well, and it ends up giving a little bit of like an orange tint to the white wine. It adds a whole other level of complexity. I don't know the nuances behind that too much or too many details as to maybe something to take account for in the final product, because you're getting additional character, possibly some more tannins and more sharpness from the skins. But you can play around. That's the best part of, especially making mead at home. You can play around until you're blue in the face.
Yeah, until you get it the way you want. Okay, I have a question that's always, because the one pyment that I made, I took what are traditionally considered to be dry grapes. People tend to make dry beverages out of them rather than sweet, the Merlot and the Chambourcin. And I made a sweet mead out of that, and actually turned out pretty good. But would you generally recommend that as something to try, or would you suggest that they kind of try to stick to the grape profile, what they're traditionally used for?
You could do whatever the hell you want, basically.
Well, yeah, I know that, but I mean, generally speaking, have you? I guess my question is more: have you done it, and did it turn out as good as you hoped? Mine turned out way different than I ever thought it would, and it turned out really good. But I had no idea what it was going to end up, because I knew I was working with traditionally, dry fermented grapes.
Yeah, I've never. Go ahead. You can take that one. You can take that one.
I put something in the chat earlier about this because someone, and I have to scroll back and see who it was, said, I made a pyment and it came out too dry, and it is only okay. And my comment was that I made wine, and Sergio, you're saying the same thing. You made wine before you made mead, so it's probably true for both of us that some of the things we learned doing that, we take that for granted in how we do things with mead, especially mead that have grapes in them, because we have a context. We understand the grapes a little bit more. We understand maybe the outcome of the wine without the honey in it more than other people would. And it gets me thinking, like, what do I actually know about grapes that is completely not obvious to anybody who's never played around with them before?
There you go.
and I think the key is the acidity sugar balance, understanding the inherent nature of the grape and realizing that that's really what one of the key things that winemakers are harnessing is understanding the physiological ripeness of that grape, which is the balance of its acids and its sugars and the other things that kind of come along for the ride, and knowing when to get that grape picked so that they get exactly or pretty close to what they're looking for in that fermenter. That is going to play a big part in how you make a pyment. Because
that's the thing. Yeah, it's just like even in the wine world. It's I'm not too huge a fan of white wines, but Sauvignon Blanc or Chenin Blanc, I'll go to any day, or a Vino Verde. But sometimes, just because you like that one specific varietal of wine doesn't mean every single bottle you're going to get is going to give you what you like about it. Depending on the grapes that they used, it's going to change. I mean, you could get a flabby, flat-tasting Sauvignon Blanc, instead of a nice, crisp, refreshing, citrusy Sauvignon Blanc. It's going to be night and day. I mean,